There is a 911 call sitting in the public record right now in Aiken County, South Carolina. A mother's voice, shaking, describing pink Minnie Mouse pajamas, pink beads, braids. She says her 4-year-old daughter wandered off while she was cooking dinner. Investigators now say that call was not true. They say by the time she picked up the phone, her daughter had already been dead for weeks. Stay with me. Because what's in these warrants, in her own words, and the father's, is one of the most disturbing timelines I've covered on this channel. Before we go further, if this is your first time here, hit subscribe now, because we cover cases like this as the documents come in, not weeks later. And if you're already part of this community, welcome back. Drop where you're watching from in the comments. Here's what this video is going to walk you through in order. The missing child report that went out to the entire country. The 5-day search that followed it. The arrest warrants that came after and what they say word for word. And then the 911 call itself in full so you can hear exactly what was said and exactly what wasn't. Stay to the end. Because once you hear the timeline these documents lay out, that 911 call is going to sound completely different than it did the first time you heard it. It started last Tuesday. A 4-year-old girl named Javeayah Harris was reported missing from a home on Hillsborough Street in Aiken County. Her mother, Machili, 22. Her father, Jariah Harris, 23. The story they gave was simple. Javeayah had been playing outside. In the chicken coop, her favorite spot, the place her mother said she found her every single day. Dinner was on the stove. Bath water was already run, and when her mother stepped back outside to bring her in, Javeayah was gone. Within hours, this wasn't a family's private nightmare anymore. It was a county-wide operation. Search and rescue teams, SLED, South Carolina State Law Enforcement Division, the FBI, nearly 200 people combing 3,000 acres of land in the heat for 5 straight days. Helicopters overhead, dogs on the ground, drones in the air. Volunteers walking tree lines they'd never set foot in before, calling a little girl's name into the woods. The whole community mobilized. Strangers who never knew her name organized a vigil. Hundreds showed up. Nobody even knew who had planned it. That's how real this search was. That's how many people believed the story they were told. But that's not what the warrants say happened. According to arrest warrants filed against both parents, Javeayah Harris did not go missing on the night of that 911 call. The warrants point to an injury on June 5th. The 911 call, the one where her mother is crying, describing pink pajamas and braided hair, was made on June 30th. Read those 2 dates again. June 5th, June 30th, 25 days. 25 days between an injury investigators say happened to this child, and a phone call that was made to sound like the entire nightmare started that very night. Every hour of that 5-day search, every volunteer in the heat, every officer walking a wooded path with a photo of a smiling little girl in pink beads. All of it happening according to what investigators allege after she was already gone. I need you to sit with that for a second, because it's about to get worse. Here is the exact language from the warrant charging Machili with homicide by child abuse. This is not paraphrased. This is what the document says. The charge was filed because, while committing child abuse or neglect, a death occurred under circumstances manifesting an extreme indifference to human life, by not seeking medical attention for Javeayah after knowing she had suffered an injury obtained through physical abuse. Read that again, knowing she had suffered an injury and not seeking help. The warrant states plainly where this information came from, the defendant's own confession and the co-defendant's confession, both parents. In their own words, according to investigators, told law enforcement what happened. The father's warrant mirrors it, homicide by child abuse, tied to an injury the document says was inflicted by the child's mother. Which means, according to what's been filed, he is accused not of causing the injury himself, but of what he did or didn't do after it happened. And then there's a second charge against the mother alone, filing a false police report. The warrant says she told officers her daughter had been abducted. It says that was false. And it says something else, something that turns this entire search into something far darker than a missing child case. It says Machili admitted she had disposed of Javeayah's body at another location, outside Aiken County entirely, but that's not even the worst part. Because now you have to go back and listen to that 911 call knowing all of this, knowing the injury happened weeks before, knowing, according to the warrant, that she had already told investigators where she'd left her daughter's body. And still, on that call, she describes her daughter's outfit in careful detail. Pink Minnie Mouse pajamas, pink beads, braids, whether she might be wearing Crocs or play shoes. She talks about how Javeayah usually plays in the chicken coop like it was any other evening. She mentions being 39 weeks pregnant, says she can't keep up with a 4-year-old the way she used to. She even brings up people who walk the path behind the house, says she's always felt weird about them, as if planting a seed. As if giving the dispatcher and everyone who would search for Javeayah after this call somewhere else to look. Pay close attention here, because this is where things take a dark turn. At one point on the call, there's silence. The line goes quiet. The dispatcher says, "Hello. I'm still here, ma'am." And Machili's response is that the call must be breaking up because of where they're at. 25 days after the warrant says an injury occurred, on a call reporting a child missing that same night. If you've made it this far, this is exactly the kind of case we break down as new documents surface. The warrants, the search details, what comes next in court. That's what this channel exists for. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the follow-up when it drops, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Now here's the call, in full, unedited. Dispatcher, Aiken County 911, where is your emergency? Machili, ma'am, I'm at 39 Hillsborough Street. I can't find my baby. She says Javeayah was outside playing. She'd gone in to cook dinner. Came back out and her daughter was gone. The dispatcher asks her age. 4, what she was wearing, pink Minnie Mouse pajamas, pink beads, braids. She's asked how long it had been. She says 20-30 minutes at most. She says there's no family or friends nearby, just dogs, chickens. She mentions Javeayah likes to chase the family dog, that she'd been searching the woods herself before calling. The dispatcher asks if Javeayah has any health issues. She says they suspected something, but no diagnosis. Says her daughter is smart, can carry a full conversation. Then she brings up the people who walk the path behind the house. Says it's always made her uneasy. The call breaks. The dispatcher checks if she's still there. She says the connection might be cutting out because of where they are. She's asked if there's a body of water nearby. She says she doesn't know, they'd only just bought the house. Doesn't know the area well. She says she doesn't know the neighbors. Says most of them use drugs. Says she doesn't associate with that. And near the end, she says officers are already pulling up. The dispatcher tells her to go talk to them. The call ends. That's the call that sent nearly 200 people into the woods for 5 days. Every detail in it, the pajamas, the chicken coop, the 30 minutes, the suspicious people on the path, became the foundation of a search that consumed a county. It was broadcast. It was shared. It was believed. And according to the warrants now filed against both parents, that story was not what happened to Javeayah Harris. There's something else that came out of all this. Something that had nothing to do with the warrants, and everything to do with the kind of grief you can't fabricate. A candlelight vigil downtown the night before these documents were released. Nobody knew who organized it. A flyer just started circulating and hundreds of people showed up. Strangers, neighbors. Parents who had never met Javeayah, standing in a crowd, talking about how this had shaken them. One woman, a first responder, said she had to call her own daughter that night, just to hear her voice. Another said when she heard a child had gone missing that close to her home, she knew the community had to do something. People brought Minnie Mouse balloons. Everyone wore pink. "I'm seeing that pretty little girl's face," one neighbor said. "She didn't deserve that." That's the part of this story that isn't in a warrant. That's not an allegation. That's just what a community does when it's told a child is lost, and it shows up anyway, before anyone knew that the child had already been gone for weeks. I want to be exact about where this case stands right now, because that matters. Machili Herring and Jariah Harris have both been charged with homicide by child abuse. Herring has additionally been charged with filing a false police report. These are charges built, according to the documents, on the parents' own statements to investigators. They are not a conviction. Both are entitled to due process, and this will move through the courts from here. What we do know from the warrants themselves, an alleged injury on June 5th. A missing child report on June 30th. A confession, according to investigators from both parents. And a body, according to the false report warrant, disposed of outside the county, in an area law enforcement has been actively searching since these charges were filed. Javeayah Harris has still not been found. If updates come, new warrant details, court dates, or word on the search, we will be covering it here the moment it's confirmed. This is an open case and it isn't finished. Subscribe so you're here when it is. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what stood out most to you in that 911 call, because for me, it was the 25 days no one knew about. I'll see you in the next one.